Hey, welcome to the Social 333 podcast. I'm your host, Chris Bentley. Today, my guest is Sean Douglas. Sean, thanks for coming on.
Thanks, man. How you been?
Everything is good. Go ahead and tell the audience a little bit about yourself and what you got going on.
Yeah, did 20 years in the Air Force and retired. And I'm a certified master resilience speaker and a certified John Maxwell leadership speaker and trainer. I host multiple podcasts, I've written multiple best-selling books. I have multiple TEDx talks and been podcasting since 2017.
Nice. We've had a couple of TEDx speakers come through. We've had some people that actually teach speaking. I know that's one thing that you do.
I do.
Mostly just for people that are looking to get on stage, right? So talk a little bit about like that kind of clientele that you kind of cater to or you try to advertise to.
Yeah, most people that are trying to break into speaking, they lack the positioning. And I think a lot of businesses, if you're growing a business, even a podcast, you have done a really good job of the marketing and the positioning of this particular show. Except most people don't, and that's where they lack in success. If you look at every successful show, podcast, business, anything, they broke in through proper marketplace positioning. And so what I speak a lot about is business positioning, speaker positioning, podcast positioning, but it's not anything drastically new. Positioning, by my definition, is how the marketplace receives and perceives the value that you deliver. And when you can do that, you break in through. And so a lot of event planners say, what outcome or what problem will you solve? If the speaker's not selling an outcome or they're not selling a problem, which then they solve, they're never going to get booked.
Yeah, we've had some folks on here, some great guests that kind of talked about the business behind the scenes, right? So, everybody kind of like wants to go talk and tell their story, which is kind of what, the podcast is set up for, but on a bigger stage, on a bigger thing. I think a lot of people, and including myself, we were just talking earlier about ego, right? So they're like really into the ego. They're like really want to tell their story. They really want to get on stage. But there's a couple of steps before you get there. I mean, you have to obviously learn how to speak. We had a pitch coach on here before, but on top of that, you have to have something for the event host to make some money off of.
Yeah. And that's the outcome. Because if the event planner is going to put you on stage, especially for 5 and 10,000, because a lot of new speakers are like, oh, I just want to get 5,000. Oh, 10,000 would be, you got to work up to that. And most of the conversations revolve around pricing. If a new speaker comes out and let's say he's $1 million earner, and okay, that'll bump him up a little bit. But if you're talking about the average guy, just gets out of the military, just exits his job, wants to get into speaking, went through something tough, wrote a book about it, 15 to 2,500 is pretty much what they're going to start out at. Most association budgets are 25 to 35. Then you get into corporate, and everybody wants to be in corporate. Most corporate budgets, 5, 7, 8. Then you get into colleges. Colleges are 25, 35. Some colleges are 55, 65. It just depends on the outcome that you deliver. And so when I'm coaching people on speaking, if you want to raise your fee, raise the level of problem that you solve. And if you can raise the level of problem you solve, then you command more money. Then you command more positioning. Then you command more demand. And that's what every speaker craves, is the demand. Every speaker thinks that they're going to put up a website, or podcaster, put up a website, I'm going to hit record, I'm going to go speak, and people are going to book me like crazy. People are going to listen to my show like crazy. And it just doesn't happen.
Right.
So to your point, I yell it from the rooftops. 99% of speakers are marketers who market their speaker business. You're a speaker for an hour. You keynote for an hour. Unless you're like a professor who speaks for 8 hours, you market a speaker business. So become good at that, because that's 90% of what you're going to do. Even if you speak two to three times a month, you're still a marketer who markets their speaker business.
Tell me about the TEDx, because we're friends on Facebook, and I look at your stuff all the time. Like, tell me about, because you didn't get in the first time, and it took you a couple of times. Like, talk about a little bit about that, because I mean, I thought that was really, really cool that even though you didn't get in the first time and multiple times, I'll let you go ahead and take the story on there.
Yeah.
Like you never really gave up.
So in 2016, when I became a professional speaker and got my first paid gig, I was looking at NSA and all the other ones, and I was like, man, TEDx would be just phenomenal. I mean, that's like the Super Bowl of speaking.
Right.
I mean, if you can do a TEDx, you pretty much made it. So I set a 5-year goal because at the time I was going to retire from the military in 2021. I said, okay, 5 years. I'll build my business for 5 years. And when I exit the military, I will have a TEDx talk. And then 2017 came around and I'm like, oh, I'll do it in a year. Oh, I'm going to do it in a year. 13 applications said no. The 14th one said yes.
Wow.
And I found out September of 2017, and my talk was in December of 2017, December 17th, 2017.
Wow.
In a TEDx Wilmington. And it was all about hacking your brain for success. And I literally on stage was like, I did this 14 times and got one. And then 2020 came around and I was booked for March or April or something like that. And it was on Zoom. Almost nobody has seen it.
Right.
But that one was on resilience, and that took me another 7, 9 times, something like that.
Wow.
But now I'm coaching speakers on how to get a TEDx. Now I'm doing nothing but consuming research on TEDx talks. Come 2023, I seen for a client, I'm like, let's get you booked on TEDx and all the things. And I saw one for Lake Superior State University in Michigan, where I'm from. I'm like, oh my God, this would be amazing. What's the theme? Identity. I was like, oh, please. I then was like, I have to apply to this. This is a no-brainer. And my pitch was, when people exit the military, when people exit college, when people exit or divorce or a big life-changing event happens, they lose their identity. So how do we stop that identity crisis and look more inward?
Mm-hmm.
Right? And they were like, oh my gosh, we love this. Let's make it for veterans specific. And so it was how to stop veteran suicide.
Wow.
Because as a veteran, I mean, even me coming in to the civilian world with businesses already built, podcasts, like I've already done the work, right? Was even tough for me. And I'm like, this is hard.
Mm.
You go from like 1,000 miles an hour to complete dead stop.
Mm.
And you're just kind of sitting on your porch and you're like, okay, I think I've had enough whiskey. I think I've had enough time to reflect. What the heck am I going to do with my life? And I already went into like the same thing, speaking, podcast. Like I was still doing the same things, but like not on a big scale.
Mm-hmm.
And it took me up until 2023, 2024 to really find my groove. I mean, when I say find my groove, it's like the next level of what I was already doing.
Right.
Right. And now I look at 2025, I'm like, how crazy 2 years ago. Crazy.
Yeah, life is crazy. I think I'm going through a little bit of that now where, the real estate market shifted.
Mm-hmm.
Things that used to work don't really work anymore. You look at things like glass half empty instead of half full. You go through these little like divots in life,
Mm-hmm.
I like to call them.
Mm-hmm.
But you're still the same person, just the surroundings have changed a little bit.
Right.
So now you have to be like, okay, well, do I change the person, which is you can't because you're your own person,
Right.
or do I have to like fix something, or
Yeah.
do I have to wait it out, like different stuff?
It all comes down to strategies.
Yeah,
Everything we do is strategy. And if you took real estate, let's take the problem that you solve.
right.
You solve, and I have a lot of friends in real estate, and I've always thought about it with VA loans and stuff.
Mhm.
You solve one of the greatest never-ending problems ever. I need a place to live.
Right.
That's the problem. But how do we get in deeper to that problem and solve the really core problem of I need a really good rate, I need an affordable home, right?
Right.
And what needs? You serve the needs of whatever, like I want a big kitchen, I want a big bathroom, I want
Mhm.
this, I want 4 bedrooms, I want this, and I have a plan for that. And you have to go out and find wherever it is in their budget, and that's a big problem for you,
Right.
and you're trying to solve it for them. So it's a never-ending supply of not only market, but if you can figure out the emotional capacity that you finding their home would bring them, that is where the real estate really shines. And some real estate agents really care about their people. It's not just a commission, right? And you do a really good job. I mean, if you look at your social media, like, let's do a walkthrough of this house. Let's do a walkthrough of this one. And I've seen it all the time on social media. So compliments to you.
Thank you. I appreciate that. You're in town right now for the podcast movement. I know you spoke, which is real cool. Tell me a little bit about like kind of what you saw for the people that didn't go. And
so podcast movement is one of those events that, I mean, 2014, 2015, right? We're just hearing about the podcast thing. Joe Rogan's getting big. Joe Polish is getting big. Dave Jackson. And podcast movement brings in a lot of agency owners, a lot of sponsors, and people who are shaping the industry. There's another event called PodFest. That's a lot of indie pod hosts. And so when we think of like podcasts and how we break into the market, how do we launch? How do we create? How do we monetize? How do we do all this stuff? Podcast movement has a lot of tools that the creator can use to break in and not so much be the indie pod, but from the people that I was talking to, they're going to implement a lot of tools either from the exhibitors or from the people who are doing it on a big scale. So PodFest and podcast movement are the two biggest in the country. And I look forward to either one.
Podcasts have really, ever since I think Joe Rogan got monetized, I think it's like really changed the landscape. You know, I did a lot of people don't know, but I started a podcast with a friend of mine, and we ended up doing it. And it was kind of just, that's when Twitter came out with I forgot what's the name off the top of my head, Periscope, right?
Periscope, oh yeah, I remember Periscope.
And like, you know, it'd be like some grainy like grainy video. It'd be sitting there like talking about real estate. And then I was like, oh, okay, well, like, you know, and then I got another idea. I was like, well, we'll just like bring in people that were our vendors and then talk to them, and kind of did something that's a little more smaller scale, local kind of, you know, kind of vibe to it. And then that kind of ended. And then with the Joe Rogan thing, I think it became more of a business. Like everybody's oh, wait a second. Like this can be a business. It can't just be like two people have nothing to do on a Friday night and they start a podcast and they just BS. No, like we can actually like run a business. And I think that's when everything kind of changed.
Yeah. And then, so take Wondery was bought by Amazon, and not even a month ago, they sent out a thing that we're going to shut it down, and people went nuts. And they're like, oh, maybe we won't. Sorry. Maybe we won't shut it down. Just kidding.
Yeah.
Like, you know, and I was like, how do you buy a whole network of shows just to like shut it down? And there's some behind the scenes things, you know, but it was just so funny that Joe Rogan sets the bar, right? And then another show gets bought, and another, and another. And now I think 4 or 5 of them have gotten these, you know, $100 million, $200 million. And then look at everything that happened during the election cycle.
Yep.
Caller Daddy does her thing. Joe Rogan does his thing. This person does theirs. And all of a sudden, and people miss it. People miss it. It was said that this election was about podcasts. Has nothing to do with politics. The medium changed, which means the attention changed, which means a whole lot of seriousness just got brought into the podcasting space. Now there's people that are like Charlemagne the God and Caller Daddy and Joe Rogan and a lot of other people. I mean, I can just name 10 or 15 shows right off the top of my head. Dax Shepard has his show, you know, Armchair Expert, whatever it's called, Armchair, whatever. They are crushing it on YouTube. All of a sudden, wait, YouTube wants to put out an RSS feed for podcasts now, and all of a sudden they're going to be a hosting platform, and all of a sudden, wait, hold on. Oh, Squadcast gets absorbed by Descript. Wait, what's Descript? Like, I mean, literally, the whole election was all about the podcast, and then mashed up the industry. And it's because of the younger generation coming in that are native digitals. This is their world, right? So in 2014, you had Joe Rogan, you had Joe Polish, you had Adam Carolla, like all those guys, right? Now, even the indie pod people are creating studios and they're creating podcasts and they're creating content, and it's getting absorbed by a younger generation who are native digitals who get it.
We were talking about that earlier in studio, that it's just such a content world right now. And I saw that probably a couple months ago, probably right around the time I started the podcast. It was just people consume so much content. It's just content all day long, whether it be social media, whether it be YouTube, whether it be, which is the same thing as social media, but just different forms of it. Even we were talking earlier about Twitch. People are getting paid off of Twitch, like long form Twitch, just running for hours. I know I've been looking into doing like faceless YouTube channels with AI. And this one guy that he's kind of like runs the pitch and kind of has his own mentorship program. Like, he showed me some of the stuff that he's done. It's just wild, history channels or different stuff. And it's just wild stuff. People are looking at 194 views about Napoleon Bonaparte, and just like, like if we're older, right? It was just like, he asked me, I was like, oh, okay, cool. Like, this guy died, like I learned him in high school. Okay, cool. But people were watching, 194,000 people watch. Yeah. Like, come on. Like, right. It's just crazy now.
And the crazier the content, or like Mr. Beast type, right? Like all that, like it's almost like the dumber it is, or like the stuff that doesn't make any sense. It's almost like it gets shared out, but like people start consuming that. Yeah. And then there was a stat a while back that said almost 80% of content is now consumed through video. So now podcast was always audio, but now it might be video. But wait, that's a vidcast. Let's categorize the podcast as a vidcast, or it's a YouTube show. Oh, wait, well, it's a podcast that's repurposed into, so it's like, what really, and we talk about category design, what really category is, like the podcast's always been audio, right? Personal on demand. But then the video, vidcast. But now people are using every medium to market. Even corporate are using ERGs, employee resource groups, to create podcasts to have an internal communication within the company employees. So they're not even focused on business podcast. It's a literal podcast for their company to give updates. Forget the email. We're in podcasting now, and somebody is sitting in a studio recording their podcast for Xerox, and then the employees are listening to the podcasts because the CEO said, hey, an update came out, listen to the podcast. Or trucking company like ABF has called the Truck Stop Podcast. And so ABF employees listen to the Truck Stop Podcast because their company is putting out information that maybe they need to know about.
That's crazy. I would have never thought it would have gone that far.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. And then you talk about user-created content. There's an AI called HiGen, Gen. HiGen. You can take snippets and transcripts and everything and take a picture of your face and record like a 90-second voice, and it has your voice now. The AI will create its own promo video of your podcast, of your book, of whatever you want, and it just creates these videos. It's called, look at it, it's HiGen, Gen. And now AI is taking over. You said faceless podcast. Yeah. There's faceless social media now. It's all branding of the social media. Thanks to Gary Vee. Now you have the faceless social medias, and now you have faceless podcasts. And then all of a sudden, now you have new networks popping up. NPR and Wondery were the big, but now iHeartRadio is everywhere. And then podcast movement is now merging with Sounds Profitable, and they're based in New York City. So now podcast movement's going to be based in New York City every year from here on out. Wow. It's going to be an attachment of Sounds Profitable. Wow. And every minute something's changing.
Yeah. Because when I started, it was
Audacity and GarageBand.
Yeah, it was like two dudes in a basement kind of deal. Okay. Yep. I know you do a couple of different podcasts. Do you want to talk anything about some things that you've seen? I've seen a lot of stuff. I've been on some different podcasts. Anything that you want to like kind of talk about or highlight?
So category design kind of seems to be the theme, right? And It's how do you create and dominate your own market category? In 2017, I created my first show, Life Transformation Radio. Sold that for 5 figures in 2021.
Nice.
That show was on Blog Talk Radio using Skype.
Wow.
And it was a live online radio show that was repurposed into a podcast. Was it a podcast? Yep. Was it an online radio? Yep. It was live. That's how I marketed it. I created my own category of my show. Like, I have this podcast, I have this podcast, I have an online radio show that's repurposed into a podcast. People are like, whoa. It's like a pattern interrupt. So now we're at like, what, 3 million podcasts, when like 3 years ago we were at like 800,000 podcasts. Now we're like 3 million. And you can look at the PodFade stats and all that, but we are at the point now where quality matters.
Oh, yeah.
And content matters. And Apple and Spotify, the rankings are based on consumer consumption of that show, length of consumption. And so it's not just a 5-star. Everybody's always like 5-star rankings, really, like they're pushing, they're like grappling for people to like come give them, you know, the 5-star rating. But length of consumption, and they've already said what it is. Length of consumption, the longer people listen, the higher it's going to rank. And so the more people that do that, the higher it goes. So they've already said what to do. Yeah, the 5 stars are great. Focus on the content. Focus on value. Focus on having an amazing conversation that, man, I have so much to say about this. I want to go to their social media page and I want to be in the conversation. And when you can get that psychology out of like our minds and into social media and into the podcast, and there's a way for them to email or give a couple tidbits on like social media, and then you create a community, that's when you win.
I think the thing that's helped me out the most is kind of a little bit about that, like, you know, having the content, having the quality for sure, but it's the direction of the show. You know, like somebody will ask to come on, and I'll be like, I'm sorry, like it just, I have nothing to talk to you about. You know, it'll be something, and it's not like a negative thing. It's just like not going to be a good fit for the show. You know, like they had a traumatic experience and they survived the traumatic experience, and now they want to talk about it or like be a speaker about how that traumatic experience shaped their lives or something, which is very cool. Always down to hear that, but I don't think I can cut out that many minutes or have that kind of thing, especially since our audience is entrepreneurs, small business owners, people that are, you know, looking for nuggets of information or looking for somebody to inspire them. Maybe they're having a hard time right now, or they're just kind of lost, or their identity, whatever the situation, or maybe they're looking to become a speaker and they're looking for, you know, how did this person do it? I think that was the main thing for me, was like, I just went all the way down to the root. I said, this is what we're going to do. This is the kind of, you know, this is the podcast that we're going to run, and it's going to be about this. And if we have a couple outliners, cool. But for the most part, it's going to be about this. Yeah.
Well, that shows a lot of emotional awareness of as a host, you know, like you said, direction of the show, you know, that congrats to you on knowing who you are and what the show is, like a living, breathing thing. So that's huge, man.
Sean, if somebody wanted to get in contact with you, maybe learn about getting on stage, maybe wanted to learn about, you know, some of the TEDx stuff that you've done, like how would somebody reach you?
Yeah, through email, Sean, SEAN, @thesuccesscourse, spelled CORPS.com. Send me an email. I'm all over social media. There's a Work With Us tab right on the website. If you're looking to get on TEDx, if you're looking to launch a podcast, launch a book, and get booked to speak and paid, because we're done speaking for exposure, right?
Yeah.
We're done speaking for free. We're done speaking for exposure. You want to be paid. You want to close business. I'll show you how.
Awesome. Sean, thank you for being on the show.
Thank you so much for having me, man. This was an honor, and your show was absolutely incredible.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thanks, man.